Is Pinterest a good place for podcasts? I have been paying attention to my own analytics on Pinterest and YouTube recently, as well as my blog, and I noticed that this topic was starting to come up to the surface again. And the last video I made is about 2 years old. So let's answer this question. Is it good for podcasts? Today's answer, and the answer has always been yes. It's a great place for podcasters to promote their podcast, to get more audience into that funnel. A lot of podcasters actually discount the platform, not just podcasters, a lot of marketers and business owners actually discount the platform in general. This is a really great place for search, but if you are not new to this audience, you already knew that. However, if you are new to this audience and you're a podcaster watching this, then this may be news to you that Pinterest is a search engine, and there are people on Pinterest that are actively looking for solutions to their problems with keywords that you can use not only on Pinterest but on your podcast website to help people to find you. Because let's just be real, podcast apps are not highly searchable. The search function within Apple Podcasts is so lacking. I honestly do not know how that podcast platform even survives. But no fear, I'm going to help you today with some strategies to not only promote your podcast on Pinterest, but to get more audience members into your funnels, deeper into your world. So let's talk about it. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to promoting your podcast on Pinterest is something that a lot of people actually skip over completely, and that is promoting your entire podcast page. Your podcast page is normally for content creators and bloggers like myself, your blog page. This is where all of your podcasts are listed and embedded. So promote this page, create pins for each new podcast episode and direct it here. One thing that I will say on your podcast episode, just like this art right here, is to make sure you include the podcast number. So if someone lands on this page and it's just a feed of your podcast, they can actually scroll and find the correct one. So let's actually talk now about creating a pinning strategy for your podcast. I would really love it if you were to create 3 very distinct types of pins for your podcast marketing strategy. And this actually, if you're listening to this and you do YouTube or blogs or anything like this actually can work for you too. But those 3 types are going to be this version where it's just a standard Pinterest pin where you're creating a very distinct text overlay. It can have an image mock-up like this. It can be an image of you if you wanted it to be that way. Whatever it is, it doesn't really matter the design style. You can see here all these different kinds. I just want you to use something like this. This is a standard pin. The next type is an infographic style Pinterest pin, where you are doing your main text overlay like you did here. So it can be 3 tips for better e-commerce conversions, and then tip 1, tip 2, tip 3. The reason I want you to create this type, and this type is not likely to actually drive a lot of conversions to your podcast or your website, but it is going to drive saves. People are going to save the crap out of this. Then the algorithm is actually going to get to work showing your content to more pinners on Pinterest. Now, the next type of content is a video pin. This is like an Instagram Reel style Pinterest pin. You can make clips out of long form videos if you do a video type podcast. If you don't do a video type podcast, I would suggest creating an Instagram Reel or a TikTok video marketing plan for your business where each podcast episode actually gets a dedicated short form video. You are going to then take that short form video and put it onto Pinterest, optimizing it for the platform and the pinner. And then this is going to be a piece of content that you then link to that podcast episode. So this is actually how many niches are on Pinterest. This video doesn't have anything to do with podcasts or e-commerce sales for that example, but we're going to pretend it is. And I just put a text overlay on here for an example. So how to get more e-commerce sales using Amazon FBA. That would be something like this podcast would be promoting, right? So I really want you to think about how you can create short form 60 to 90 second content that you can then put onto Pinterest, optimize it for Pinterest. So it may be that you need to film your video and remove the embedded text overlays if you don't like how they look, or you can leave that if you do text overlays that are very distinct like these on Instagram, like I do. I actually create for Pinterest in mind first and not necessarily for Instagram in mind. And then you can always do something like this where you edit the video, and go about it that way. So this is the third type of content for your pinning strategy for your podcast. So the next thing that I want you to do as part of your Pinterest strategy for your podcast is to pay attention to Pinterest trends. I want you to match Pinterest trends with your content. You can do this one of two ways. Number one is to actually create a content plan based on trends. So I'm filming this video right now based on a trend that's actually happening on Pinterest around podcasts, how to promote your podcast on Pinterest. This is a topic that is rising in trends. Pinterest has recognized that this is a topic that I've created on before, and they're telling me that. So I'm creating a new video on this topic. So pay attention, make content. That's number one. Number two is to use the Pinterest trends to create new pins for older content in your library. So what you could do is come in here and look for interests wherever you fall, or so let's just say you're a teacher podcaster. You could create a piece of content that maybe you already have on your website, but you're creating new pins for it on back to school teacher gifts. Let's say you are an Instagram marketer and you are looking to get more people into your membership. So you come in here and you would take a look and see what is trending on that topic. All right. Now that you have matched your content to trends, you have a pinning strategy, what's next? Well, what's next is actually something that we're going to go a little bit deeper on in just a moment, but it's essentially creating a funnel for your podcast. So we're looking at this podcast example right here. And if I were to click on this, which I can't, let's click on it here. I would look through here and see how I could create a funnel for my podcast. So a funnel it does not need to be complicated. You can literally create something so stupid simple. So whatever your podcast episode is, whatever your main pillars are in your business, actually. So let's go higher. Whatever your main pillars are in your business, you should have a free opt-in for the beginning of the customer journey for each of those pillars. For me, that's Pinterest organic, Pinterest ads, graphic design, and automation. I have added more in there. I've got more lead magnets now, but those are my four main ones. And I have my Pinterest strategy guide, my Pinterest ads strategy guide, my automation guide, and quiz. I actually have two for that funnel. And then my graphic design is free Pinterest templates. So the funnel really starts with just a free lead magnet, and then I bring them further down into the funnel with a nurture sequence, and then I upsell them to the membership. So whatever your funnel looks like, create something simple, at least get started with offering something free that goes with each episode. That is a theme that matches each episode, and that's the beginning of your funnel. All right, before we go, there are a few questions that I get in my community quite regularly from podcasters who are in my academy, my paid membership program. And those two questions, they are the same two almost every single time. Number one, can I use audiograms on Pinterest? My answer is always, well, sure, but Pinterest is a visual platform, so is there any way that we can utilize video instead? So a lot of podcasters these days are actually filming their podcast YouTube style, like this right here, and publishing that as well as the audio transcript to podcast platforms. Is there any way we can take that video with a tool like Opus, Clips, or any other AI type tool, Descript, you name it, and make video clips that we can then turn into searchable, highly valuable content, kind of like what I showed you in the screen share. Now, question number two is, how do I create an overall marketing plan for my podcast? I get this question quite often, I think honestly because I have a YouTube channel, you're watching it, and a podcast and a YouTube channel are very similar. I mean, you could literally swap the word YouTube channel for podcast, and I would still apply the same marketing plan that I do to my own YouTube channel. Obviously, when we're talking about Pinterest for podcast marketing, I'm really going to encourage you, like I mentioned before, to create a long form blog post that goes with each of your podcast episodes. You are going to incorporate a Google SEO marketing plan behind that. So there should be a Google SEO strategy that goes with your blog posts and transcripts for each podcast episode. Then you are going to incorporate a social media strategy. So choose a social platform, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I see YouTube as more of a long form content destination rather than a social media platform. But you're going to choose a social media platform, and you are going to create social media posts and videos that help to support each podcast episode. For example, I actually have my own marketing plan right here that I am creating for September. And I quite simply just like on a Google Doc, this is kind of hard to see, in GoodNotes, I make a marketing plan and then I convert that into my ClickUp for later. We don't need to talk about the logistics of that right now, but for example, the week of September 11th, I am going to be publishing a video about a Pinterest board strategy. I'm gonna then create 3 pieces of content for social media. Carousel posts talking about creating a board strategy, an Instagram reel speaking to the types of boards you should create for your Pinterest account. And then the third piece is a free opt-in that gets people onto my email list. So I'm not even recreating or creating a new piece of content in that case. I'm only creating 2 pieces of social media content for the week, one of which will get then repurposed to other places. You're then going to use Pinterest marketing. We're talking about that today. And last but certainly not least, you are going to create some sort of free offer to implement into your podcast. And you are going to offer that to your listeners who will then get on your email list. They will incorporate that thing that you gave them for free into their lives. And now you're going to start emailing them. I know, scary concept. You're going to start emailing them regularly about the podcast, about your offers, about the way that they can work with you, and all of the above. So I really, very quickly, before I let you go, I want to show you an example of a podcast I went out and found on the internet. I've never listened to this podcast. I could not find an example to the quality that I wanted, but this one will have to do, friends. I'm going to show you the podcast example, and then I'm going to show you a blog post example of mine, and we're going to pretend it's a podcast episode. It was a YouTube video. So without further ado, let's actually hop back into the screen share really quickly. Okay, so I want to highlight, for the sake of showcasing somebody that's actually doing it really well in the podcast space. The links are not dead. You can actually click them, things like that. So this is a podcaster. She's been in my membership community. I've done some one-on-one mentoring with her for content strategy, just getting like workflows and systems lined up, things like that. So this particular podcaster has a podcast page. So promoting your podcast page, this is great. But then also her podcast episodes are not only a transcript, what's in the episode, but here at the top, she says, join my 30-day free challenge, where she's actually connecting what she's talking about in the episode to a way to get people down into her funnels. I love this. I like the way that she's gone about doing this. And then if you scroll further down to the bottom, there is more ways that you can work with her as well. So we have the workshop here. And then obviously we have the full website where you can click around, join the email list, courses coming soon, things like that. So this is a really great way to not only integrate your podcast audience and a blogging audience from Google, or a more of a reading style audience from Google, into your funnels. So just because you're a podcaster does not mean that you shouldn't have ways for people to work with you other than just listening to your podcast. Unless you have big name sponsors, we have to find other ways to monetize. It's the same with my YouTube channel. I don't have sponsors on my YouTube channel. I monetize my channel with my own funnels. So this is actually a really great way to do that. And then obviously the Pinterest component comes in to making pins for the podcast episodes. And you can see here her follow her on Pinterest, and she's got pins that directly link to her blog, her funnels, and her, podcast episodes, the actual blog posts for the episodes. So I just wanted to showcase this one because this is really, really well done. It is very hard to find really well done podcast examples because a lot of podcasters just do not focus on having their own space off of a podcast platform. So I 100% endorse having your own website where you own the traffic, you own the data, you can then run ads to it if you wanted to. You can do whatever you want. You can monetize in whatever way you want that works for you and your business and your audience. I will leave notes in the description down below for this example if you wanted to go check her out. So now that you've seen that and you've consumed all of the pinning strategy and methodology around Pinterest for your podcast, I want you to head on over and watch this video right here, Pinterest Marketing, What I Would Tell My Friends. In that video, it is a full what you should do right now, current day, completely up to date video on exactly what should be in your Pinterest marketing strategy. I want you to sub out any words that you hear that are not podcasts. So if you hear content creator, you're a content creator. If you hear YouTube videos, you're a podcaster. Sub those things out. It does not matter that it might be geared towards another industry. It will work for you. Consume that piece of content, and I will see you over there.